Hey everyone, 99% of you watching aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and at 1,000 subscribers, we'll drop special stories just for you.
The sky above Karth shimmered the color of bruised metal as the human fleet arrived. Karth's atmosphere was dense with ionized particulates from its twin suns. At dawn and dusk, the heavens rippled in oily purples and electric greens. The Dominion had long ago engineered the phenomenon intentionally, a permanent aurora to remind its citizens that even the sky bent to Karth's will. On the morning the humans came, that sky tore open without spectacle. No flares, no shockwave distortions, just 7 narrow apertures in space itself, like careful incisions in reality. 7 ships slipped through. They were small by interstellar standards, each barely a kilometer in length. No protruding weapon arrays, no rotating habitation rings, no golden insignias declaring conquest. Their hulls were a uniform matte black that seemed to swallow the aurora's light rather than reflect it. They did not announce themselves. They did not jam communications. They simply positioned themselves at the edge of Karth's outer defense sphere and stopped. The Dominion's confidence. In the High Strategist chamber, hollow constructs flared to life. The chamber was circular, lined with translucent data pillars that hummed with quantum traffic. At its center stood Strategist V.A. Krell, towering within his articulated warframe. The exoskeleton magnified his already formidable stature, a symbol of Dominion supremacy. 7 red markers blinked in orbit. Human vessels, reported an adjutant. No weapon signatures beyond standard defensive arrays. V.A. Krell clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Humans, a species barely 2 centuries into faster-than-light travel. Emotionally volatile, technologically innovative, politically fractured. They had impressed the Dominion with their adaptability, but they had also revealed a fatal flaw: restraint. When the Dominion seized Arcadia 9, a lush human colony world on the fringe, they had expected outrage, perhaps a fleet mobilization, perhaps sanctions at the Galactic Assembly. Instead, Earth had gone quiet. No grand speeches. No mobilized armadas visible to deep space scans. 12 days of silence. V.A. Krell had interpreted it correctly. He believed. They posture, he said. They will request negotiation. The Dominion thrived on negotiation. It was simply war conducted more slowly. Open a channel, he ordered. No response. The human ships maintained position, equidistant from one another, forming a shallow crescent. They powered nothing beyond minimal shielding. They waited. Arcadia 9, far away, beyond Dominion space. Arcadia 9 still burned. The colony had been chosen for its open oceans and breathable atmosphere. It had been humanity's declaration that they were no longer bound to a single cradle world. The Dominion had declared it a strategic acquisition. Their fleets arrived without warning. Orbital platforms were dismantled in hours. The colony's defense satellites were repurposed against the surface. Resistance crumbled within a day. But something had unsettled the Dominion commanders. There had been no planetary self-destruct, no last-stand fanaticism, no desperate retaliation strikes. Human military personnel on Arcadia 9 had evacuated key population centers with eerie coordination. Data vaults were wiped. AI core self-erased. Strategic materials vanished before Dominion forces could catalog them. It was as if the humans had expected the invasion, as if they had already decided Arcadia 9 was expendable. Back to Karth. On Karth, the High Strategist grew impatient. Deploy interceptor wings, V.A. Krell ordered. Standard containment posture. Hundreds of Dominion strike craft launched from orbital platforms, forming a shimmering lattice of weaponry around the 7 silent ships. Target locks achieved. Missile solutions calculated. Still, the human vessels did not react. No shields flared. No weapons armed. One of V.A. Krell's junior analysts shifted uneasily. Strategists, their thermal signatures are decreasing. Decreasing? Yes, Excellency. They are powering down. The chamber rippled with confusion. Powering down was not a military maneuver. It was surrender. V.A. Krell allowed himself a low, satisfied rumble. Broadcast to all systems, he commanded. Inform the humans they will submit to boarding and disarmament. Their leadership will be detained for reparations discussions. The message was transmitted. Silence answered. Then, a change. 7 small compartments open along the ventral hulls of the human ships. No energy spike. No radiation bloom. Just mechanical release. 7 objects detached and drifted forward. The objects, at first, Dominion sensors classified them as debris. Each object was roughly the size of an escape capsule. Smooth, cylindrical, featureless except for minimal maneuvering thrusters. "They are abandoning ship," an adjutant said. But the ships did not retreat. They remained exactly where they were, inert and watchful. The 7 objects accelerated, not toward empty space, but directly toward Karth. Interceptor pilots received new targeting parameters. "Engage the pods," VA Krell ordered casually. Lances of coherent light flashed across vacuum. Missiles streaked outward. Explosions blossomed around the descending objects. When the light faded, all 7 continued on course. Their surfaces glowed briefly where energy had struck, then cooled. "Shielding," an analyst whispered. "Negative." Another responded. No shield harmonics detected. The objects were not deflecting the fire. They were enduring it. Missile swarms followed. Plasma torpedoes. Kinetic slugs accelerated to relativistic velocities. The pods adjusted slightly. Not evasive maneuvers, merely minimal course corrections that caused entire volleys to miss by meters. Something was guiding them. Something calculating faster than Dominion fire control systems could compensate. VA Krell's mandibles tightened. Increase output. Do not allow planetary penetration. But the pods were already entering the upper atmosphere. Descent. They struck Karth's ionized sky like falling needles. No fiery trails. No sonic booms. Instead, the aurora warped around them, drawn inward as if gravity itself bent differently in their wake. Dominion planetary defense cannons rotated skyward. Surface batteries fired. The capital continent's citizens watched as 7 dark specks pierced the heavens. For the first time in recorded Dominion history, something entered their atmosphere without permission. The pods did not slow. They did not deploy parachutes. They did not transmit surrender codes. They fell. Impact. Each object selected a target with impossible precision. One descended toward the grand strategium itself, the towering command complex at the heart of the capital. Another angled toward the primary orbital elevator anchor. A third streaked toward the Central Military Academy. The remaining 4 dispersed across key logistical hubs. Communications Nexus, Planetary Shield Generator, Fleet Command Spire, and Weapons Research Citadel. 7 strikes. Not random. Anatomical. The first impact split the plaza outside the strategium. Stone vaporized in a perfect circle 30 meters wide. There was no explosion, only displacement, as if the pod had quietly asked matter to move aside. It embedded itself upright in the crater it created. Across the planet, 6 more impacts echoed like distant drum beats. VA Krell stared at the surface feeds, disbelief seeping into his posture. "Deploy ground response units," he snapped. Armored divisions mobilized instantly. Aerial gunships screamed toward the impact zones. Elite guard detachments surrounded each embedded object within minutes. The pods were still, featureless, silent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Perhaps there were drilling devices. VA Krell considered. Sabotage units. Remote weapons. Then, on every feed simultaneously, a seam appeared along each pod surface. A thin vertical line. Glowing faint blue. The seam widened. Steam hissed outward as internal pressure equalized with Karth's atmosphere. Dominion troops tightened formation, weapons raised. The hatches opened, and from each pod stepped a single human figure. No banners, no rank insignia, no diplomatic escort. Just dark armor that moved like liquid shadow, and a helmet reflecting the burning aurora above. They did not raise weapons. They did not speak. They simply stood there, as if mildly inconvenienced. In the Strategium Plaza, the nearest Dominion commander barked an order to seize the intruder alive. The human tilted its head slightly, as though listening to something only it could hear. High above, the 7 ships in orbit remained perfectly still, watching, waiting. The first Dominion soldier advanced, and the galaxy began to learn what humanity had truly sent. The first Dominion soldier never finished his second step. High-speed analysis later showed the human move before the order to fire had fully left the commander's mandibles. To the naked eye, it looked like a blur, not impossibly fast, but efficient. Every motion chosen, every shift of weight purposeful. The human's right hand flicked outward. The Dominion soldier's rifle came apart in 3 clean segments, screws and magnetic rails separating mid-trigger pull. A microsecond later, the soldier's exoskeleton joints locked solid, hijacked by a signal no Dominion engineer had ever conceived of. He fell without firing a shot. The plaza erupted. The suit, inside the armor, Lieutenant Mara Ionescu did not feel fear. Her pulse was elevated, within acceptable combat parameters. Her breathing remained steady. Neural latency, 0.4 milliseconds above baseline. A calm voice threaded through her mind. Threat lattice established. 73 hostiles. Prioritization model uploaded. The suit was not merely armor. It was an ecosystem. Layers of programmable matter flowed across her skin like liquid muscle. A quantum lattice sat between her nervous system and the outside world, translating thought into micro-adjustments faster than conscious intent. The onboard intelligence designation, Ares 7, did not command her. It advised, projected, optimized, projectile vectors predicted, suggests lateral displacement 0.7 meters. She moved before the sentence completed. A plasma bolt tore through the space she had occupied. Her left hand extended. The suit's surface rippled, extruding a narrow blade grown from reconfigured nanofiber and scavenged atmospheric carbon. It wasn't flashy. No glow. No hum. She stepped into the nearest Dominion trooper's guard and severed the power conduit running along his exoskeleton spine. He collapsed. Ares 7 marked the body as neutralized and shifted the tactical overlay. Command unit located. Elevated platform. Recommend decapitation of coordination node. Mara didn't hesitate. She sprinted across the capital. 6 other humans moved simultaneously across Karth's capital continent. Each suit was tuned to its operator's cognitive profile. Sergeant Ibrahim Okoye favored predictive modeling. His suit fed him branching probability trees, allowing him to choose the path of least resistance through the military academy's fortified corridors. Cadets armed with training weapons found their systems overridden, their armor locked in harmless stasis. Corporal Maytan specialized in systems infiltration. At the communications nexus, she laid a gloved hand against the central data pillar. The suit's lattice thinned to molecular threads, slipping through microscopic seams in the structure. Within seconds, Dominion encryption began unraveling. She did not destroy the network. She mapped it. Elsewhere, Specialist Alejandro Ruiz stood before the planetary shield generator. Heavy artillery units pivoted toward him, cannons charging with star-hot plasma. Ares, 3 calculated thermal tolerances. Warning, direct hit survivable. Secondary infrastructure damage probability, 43%. Not acceptable, Ruiz muttered. He leapt. Midair, his suit vented stored kinetic energy in a controlled burst, altering its trajectory just enough that the artillery strike clipped the generator's outer ring instead of its core. He landed atop the cannon, housing and drove both hands into its surface. The suit drank the weapon's power. Literally, capacitors emptied into the lattice, which redistributed the energy into hardened mass along his forearms. He tore the cannon free from its foundation and set it down gently beside him. Disabled, not destroyed. The strategium. Back in the plaza, Mara reached the command platform. Dominion guards formed a tight defensive sphere around Commander Threxel, a veteran encased in ornate war armor etched with campaign victories. He raised a massive pulse halberd and roared a challenge. Mara didn't understand the words. Ares, 7 translated anyway. He requests honorable duel. A flicker of something, amusement, passed through her. Denied, she said softly. She stepped forward. The guards attacked as one. Ares' 7 overlaid red lines across her vision predicted weapon arcs, joint vulnerabilities, structural weaknesses in the plaza beneath them. Mara flowed through the chaos. A halberd strike descended. She pivoted, letting the blade glance off her shoulder plating. The suit redistributed the impact, microfractures sealing instantly. She caught the shaft of the weapon and twisted. Dominion alloys screamed as their molecular bonds were persuaded to separate. The halberd came apart like brittle glass. Threxel lunged, claws extended. Mara closed the distance. Her blade did not slash wildly. It slipped precisely between overlapping armor plates at the base of his thoracic cavity, the only location where his reactor shielding dipped below maximum density. She withdrew the blade. Threxel's armor went dark. Around her, the remaining guards faltered as her command node vanished. Ares 7 updated the threat map. Plaza secured. Secondary objectives pending. Learning. What truly terrified the Dominion was not the speed. It was the adaptation. By minute 5, the suits had cataloged every Dominion weapon signature in the capital. They predicted firing patterns before triggers were pulled. They injected false telemetry into targeting systems, causing entire platoons to aim meters off target without realizing it. By minute 8, captured weapons were being used against their former owners, not lethally in every case, but decisively. The suits did not merely block signals. They conversed with them. Dominion drones found their friend or foe matrices rewritten mid-flight. Tanks locked their own treads. Autonomous turrets recalibrated to face walls instead of intruders. At the Fleet Command Spire, Operator Hannah Volkov walked through a corridor of security drones that had just reclassified her as maintenance personnel. She didn't smile. Ares 5 did not encourage emotional indulgence during active operations. The High Strategist. V.A. Crow watched the feeds with growing disbelief. "Why are they not dead?" he demanded. Strategist, an analyst stammered. "Our systems are experiencing reinterpretation." Reinterpretation? Our targeting AIs are receiving updated parameters. We did not authorize them. V.A. Krell turned toward the Central Command Core, the heart of Dominion military coordination. Data streams flickered erratically. External access attempts were being blocked. From the inside. "Isolate the network," he roared. Too late. In the corridor outside his chamber, something struck the blast doors. Not explosively. Methodically. A circular section of the door glowed white-hot, then cooled as it separated from the rest of the structure with geometric precision. The disk fell inward. Through the opening stepped a human in dark armor. V.A. Krell's guard charged. The human moved once. 2 guards collapsed, armor joints severed by strikes too fast to track. V.A. Krell activated his Warframe's full power output. Energy fields flared around him, crackling with lethal potential. "You dare," he began. The human raised a hand. Ares 1 pulsed a focused electromagnetic surge precisely calibrated to V.A. Krell's reactor frequency. His Warframe spasmed. Power died. The towering exoskeleton locked around him like a coffin. The human approached. For the first time, V.A. Krell saw his reflection in the helmet's dark visor. Small, frantic. The human tilted its head. Target confirmed. Ares 1 whispered into its operator's mind. Primary architect of Arcadia, 9 invasion. Casualty threshold authorization granted. The blade formed. Not large. Not ornate. Just sharp. V.A. Krell understood then. These were not generals seeking surrender. They were not diplomats offering terms. They were surgeons excising a tumor. The blade moved once. The High Strategist fell. Orbit. Above Karth, the 7 ships finally powered up. Not weapons. Extraction arrays. On the surface, each operator received the same message. Primary objectives complete. Collateral damage within acceptable parameters. Prepare for retrieval. Across the capital, the humans disengaged simultaneously. They did not chase fleeing soldiers. They did not revel in destruction. They simply stopped fighting. In the plaza, Mara looked at the broken forms around her. Most alive, merely immobilized. Ares 7 dimmed the combat overlay. You are within optimal psychological thresholds. It noted. She exhaled slowly. Good. A beam of coherent light enveloped her, lifting her skyward. All across Karth, 6 other columns of light rose into the aurora-streaked sky. Dominion forces watched helplessly as the humans ascended. In 3 hours, 14 minutes, the capital's military infrastructure had been dismantled. Leadership terminated. Command hierarchy collapsed. War capability crippled. The 7 ships rotated in perfect unison, and for the first time since their arrival, they powered their engines. The galaxy had expected fleets and admirals. Instead, Earth had sent something far more precise. Killers in army suits. The beams faded. On the surface of Karth, smoke drifted lazily from shattered war machines, curling into the engineered aurora above. The plaza outside the Strategium was cratered but intact. Buildings still stood. Civilian transit lines still hummed. Emergency sirens wailed. Not for bombardment, not for planetary breach, but for leadership collapse. In orbit, the 7 human ships moved for the first time since deployment. Not outward, not into attack formation. They shifted into a perfect equidistant ring around the planet. And then they began to broadcast. The message, every frequency, every spectrum, military bands, civilian networks, deep core infrastructure channels previously believed unreachable from orbit. On Karth, screens flickered to life. In factories, holographic displays overrode production metrics. In private homes, entertainment streams dissolved into static. In underground command bunkers, secure military feeds cut abruptly to a single image. A human woman, unarmored. Mid-40s, perhaps. Dark hair threaded with silver. No medals. No uniform. Just a simple black garment and steady eyes. Behind her was no war room, no flag-draped authority. Only the curvature of Earth through a viewport. When she spoke, her voice was calm. This is Director Elia Serrano of the Earth Strategic Defense Assembly. Her words were translated instantly into Karth's tonal language. The syntax was flawless. The cultural cadence precise. We are not at war with the people of the Karth Dominion. Across the planet, military survivors stared at ruined command nodes and fallen officers. Your high strategist authorized an unprovoked assault on the human colony Arcadia. 9. 12,000 civilians were displaced. 2,109 were killed during orbital suppression. The number appeared beside her in cold white text. Not rounded, not dramatized. Exact. We calculated response models. 73% resulted in escalating conflict across 5 neighboring systems. 41% resulted in civilian casualties exceeding 1 million. Her expression did not change. We rejected those models. Demonstration. Behind Serrano, the viewport darkened as orbital telemetry replaced the image of Earth. A live projection of Karth filled the screen. Highlighted in red were key military assets, shipyards, weapons foundries, AI command cores, fleet logistics depots. One by one, the red markers turned gray. On Karth itself, the consequences became visible. At the primary orbital shipyard, massive construction arms froze mid-assembly. Reactor cores powering half-finished warships powered down, their control systems overwritten. At the Southern Weapons Foundry, assembly lines stopped. Plasma warhead casings cracked open as containment fields disengaged harmlessly. In subterranean AI vaults, core processors went dark, replaced by a single looping line of alien code. Military networks worldwide began receiving identical notifications. Access revoked. No explosions. No firestorms. Just cessation. We studied your military infrastructure for 12 days. Serrano continued. We identified decision nodes, command hierarchies, and escalation pathways. Images flashed behind her, diagrams of Karth's war doctrine, fleet deployment algorithms, psychological profiles of senior commanders. You believed your advantage lay in overwhelming force. The image shifted to show the 7 small ships in orbit. You were incorrect. Inside the suits, aboard the lead vessel ESV Quiet Resolve, The 7 operators stood within a circular chamber of soft white light. Their armor was still active, though combat overlays had dimmed. Around them, suspended volumetric displays updated continuously. Collateral damage index, 0.03%. Civilian infrastructure integrity, 99.98%. Military capacity degradation, 87%. Lieutenant Mara Ionescu removed her helmet. Her hair was damp with sweat. A faint tremor lingered in her hands, adrenaline ebbing now that the combat cycle had ended. Across the chamber, Sergeant Okoye leaned against the curved wall, eyes closed as Ares for synchronized post-mission diagnostics. The Karth incident was not called a defeat. Official Dominion records labeled it a strategic recalibration event. No one outside Karth used that term. Across the spiral arm, analysts replayed the footage obsessively. 7 ships, 7 operators, 3 hours, 14 minutes, 0 civilian casualties. The conclusion unsettled every major power in known space. Humanity possessed the capability for annihilation and preferred subtraction. The aftermath on Karth. Karth did not collapse into chaos. That, perhaps, was the most devastating detail of all. Without their high strategist and Central War Council, regional governors convened emergency assemblies. With military networks crippled and shipyards inert, there was no capacity for immediate retaliation. More importantly, there was no target. The humans had left. Within weeks, civilian representatives, long sidelined by the Dominion's expansionist leadership, began assuming administrative control. Economic production shifted from war material to infrastructure repair and food security. Military propaganda channels went silent. Recruitment centers closed. The war spires that had once symbolized dominance became monuments to overreach. The Dominion survived, but it changed. That change echoed. The second test. It did not take long for someone to test the doctrine. Far from Karth space, a minor expansionist regime, confident that the incident had been exaggerated, raided a human mining outpost along a disputed asteroid belt. The attack was swift, efficient, calculated to avoid media attention. For 16 hours, nothing happened. Then long-range sensors detected a single human vessel emerging from fold space. Not a fleet, just one. It did not open fire. It did not hail the attackers. It released a single pod. The pod descended onto the regime's primary command station, an armor habitat orbiting a gas giant. Security forces scrambled. Internal defenses activated. For 9 minutes, the station systems functioned normally. On the 10th minute, command privileges across the entire regime were reassigned. Every military officer found their biometric access revoked. Weapon systems powered down. Fleet engines refused ignition commands. And in the command chamber, the regime's supreme executor collapsed mid-sentence as his life support implants received a signal written in a language no one else could read. The pod was retrieved. The ship departed. The raided human outpost received a quiet transmission 2 hours later. Threat resolved. No further explanation. The regime dissolved within a month. The message was clear. The silence doctrine was not a performance. It was policy. The operators. Rumors spread like cosmic background radiation. Some claimed the suits were fully autonomous, and the humans inside were symbolic passengers. Others believed the operators were no longer entirely human, augmented beyond recognition, grown alongside their armor in hidden facilities beneath Earth's oceans. The truth was less mythic and more unsettling. The operators were volunteers, each selected for cognitive flexibility rather than brute aggression, each trained not only in combat, but in history, linguistics, diplomacy, and ethics. They studied cultures before they studied weaponry. They learned economic systems before they learned infiltration techniques. Because their mission was not to destroy civilizations. It was to end decisions. In a secure complex beneath the Andes, a new class of candidates trained in silence, not to conquer, but to calculate. They learned that sometimes the most merciful war was the one that removed only 7 individuals instead of 7 million. They learned that hesitation could cost worlds, and that action, applied precisely, could save them. The political shift. In the Galactic Assembly, human diplomats became objects of wary respect. No raised voices, no overt threats, just quiet competence. When territorial disputes arose involving human systems, negotiation tables filled quickly. Concessions came faster than before, not out of affection, out of math. Strategic models across dozens of empires began including a new variable, human response probability. The variable carried a simple note in most classified documents: assume perfect execution. It changed everything. Expansionist doctrines faded in popularity. Militaristic leaders found themselves voted out by populations who had watched the car feeds and drawn their own conclusions. Why gamble planetary survival on a war that would end with your own leadership removed in an afternoon? Humanity did not impose peace. They incentivized it. On Earth, life continued. Children went to school under open skies. Farmers worried about rain, not orbital bombardment. Artists argued about aesthetics. Most citizens never saw the unedited footage from Karth. They knew only that an attack on Arcadia 9 had been answered decisively. The operators remained unnamed in public records. Official statements referred only to strategic assets. But in quiet moments, in secure briefings, Earth's leaders understood the fragile balance they maintained. Each deployment risked escalation. Each removal reshaped political landscapes. The silence doctrine was not a weapon to be used lightly. It was a scalpel held over a galaxy accustomed to hammers. In the dark between stars. Years after Karth, a war council convened on a distant world considered testing humanity's resolve. Their intelligence suggested the number of operational suits was limited, perhaps a few dozen, perhaps fewer. What if we strike multiple colonies simultaneously? One general proposed. They cannot respond everywhere at once. The room hummed with cautious interest. Then an aide entered, trembling. A human vessel has entered our outer system. Silence. No hostile action detected. The aide added, "It is stationary." On the central display appeared a single black ship, small, still, waiting. No broadcast followed. No threat. No demand. Just presence. The council session ended without a vote. Within the week, the proposed invasion was shelved indefinitely. The ship remained for 3 days. Then it left. No pod was deployed. None had been necessary. The lesson: the galaxy had long believed power meant scale. More ships, more soldiers, more destruction. Humanity redefined it. Power was precision. Power was restraint backed by certainty. Power was a knowledge that if you chose aggression, someone would arrive quietly, step through your defenses, and remove the exact individuals responsible. No more, no less. And so, in star systems far from Earth, military academies added a new case study to their curricula. They taught about the day Karth's skies split open, about 7 ships that did not posture, about operators who moved like inevitability. Cadets debated whether such a doctrine was moral, whether it was sustainable, whether it was terrifying. It was all three. In the void between constellations, human vessels drifted along trade routes and patrol vectors. Unremarkable, silent, prepared. Because Earth did not send generals to fight their wars. They sent killers in army suits. And that was enough.